right, Igor, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
This is going to be a lot of fun. I should have recorded the first 5 minutes, but you were talking about your golf game and sort of your passion for golf, and we'll get into that. But in the other spectrum, I'm more interested in your side of the business, which is the entrepreneurship and the personal
Yeah.
growth and the sell. All that stuff is interesting to me. So I was really excited to have you on the show
Thank you.
because it's different than what I usually have is which is boring teaching professionals, right? We listen to which you get really excited about, but I listen to podcasts that like are in your world, which is how do you do startups and how do you make money and all that's so interesting to me. So I'm so excited to dig into it. I've got so many
I,
questions.
and it's funny. I mean, obviously, I can share some golf tips now. I won't actually, but I love business in the way that I see business and golf to be very similar. From a psychological point of view, from mental
Yes,
performance, and just the grind. It's actually really similar. It's one of the few sports I think that has that similarity. I actually haven't really found another one. Um, yeah, so
one hundred
except maybe
percent.
poker. I wouldn't call that a sport, but
Yeah, but there's a lot to that. We talk about probability in our coaching, right? It's like
mm,
we're big on stats and trying to stack the deck in our favor with our players. So yeah, you're 100%. Like it's really cool that we've connected, and I don't want to sleep on your journey though. Like I think that like I've done a lot of research on you, and I know your story. It's super fascinating. It's very interesting. Again, for me, like I got excited. I've listened to it on a couple of my runs and it share because people don't realize the journey and the I think the passion that you've created come to get to golf, right? It's like
yeah.
there's so much more. Don't leave anything out, okay?
Okay.
So I know you grew up in Russia, right? Very very
Yeah.
close to the Ukraine, and then moved to Australia. So talk a little bit about your childhood because I think that's an important
Yeah.
part of your journey and like how you got to the U.S. And that'll be a good start.
Sure. I'll tell you. I'll tell you one story, which I used to actually have on my LinkedIn profile. I took it off. I don't know. I should put it back on. But so I grew up in. I was born in a place called Moldova, which is one of the republics of former Soviet Union. It's right next to Ukraine. So my mom's from Ukraine. So I spent my summers in Ukraine with my grandmother. And so childhood, fun and games and stuff. But there's one particular really interesting moment that I will never forget. So I was in a school camp in Sevastopol. The part of Crimea, obviously, pretty
Mhm.
hot topic these days. We went there in a school camp, and there's a beach there, and we went to the beach, and I hated the beach. I love the beach now, having grown up in Australia, but back then I hated the beach. But I back in USSR, like there was no water that you could buy on like anywhere, right? You couldn't just go and like buy a bottle of water on the beach. And so you had to carry your own little cups or bottles or whatever, and you had to go find water somewhere, like a tap, and there was no cups. And like even like the street vendors would drink called kvass, which is really
Hmm.
cool. But most Westerners hate it, but we love it. And but you had to bring your own cup because there's no cups. Welcome to communism, right? And so I had this idea. I was like 6 or 7. I could have took my backpack and I put like loaded up all these empty like I washed these glass bottles from milk and other stuff, and I took them with me and I would sell them and I would sell water on the beach. I would fill them with water. I would sell it on the beach, and I got into a lot of trouble. But when we got back to Moldova, my parents got called up into the Communist Party headquarters, and they were sat down this and they were told, oh, they were chastised for, and this is literally a quote. They said, "You are raising a little bourgeoisie pig." That's what they
God.
called me, a bourgeoisie pig. And and so that was really funny. And my parents were very proud. And they're like, yeah, we gotta get out of this place. And came to Australia in '91. So I was almost 11. Grew
Right.
up in Australia, and I was look pretty normal. I mean, I had this entrepreneurial bug since I was a kid. Kind of was born with it. Started my first business, I think, when I was like 17 or 16, doing websites. This is when the internet first came out, and
Right.
so I've had the bug, but I was a tech guy. I'm a geek. Like I used to have really fat glasses as well. By the way, I had laser eye surgery in 2003. Um, but I was a tech geek, and then so I love numbers, which is kind of brings me back to the whole. We'll come back to the whole golf
Yeah,
simulator space
for
and
sure.
all the numbers, right?
Yeah.
But I've always like I was good with maths, and I was good at business and sort of accounting and numbers, and and then basically I was working in tech, and a very good friend of mine who's actually used to be a professional poker player. He was quite a good golfer, and he's like, "Why don't you try it? Like, you might like it." I was like, I played like one during college. I played like a couple of times a year.
Mm-hmm.
Just hit a ball. I couldn't hit it. I would hit two fairways to the right. Massive slice. Big shoulders. So try to hit it hard and go look for the ball for 30 minutes. And so I didn't enjoy it. And then I kind of my friend said, "Why don't you start getting lessons?" And there was a business in Melbourne called Golf Tech, which was not related to Golf Tech here in the US.
I was going to say we're going to come back to that with your
We will, yeah. Well,
association with
yeah,
Golf
this
Tech,
the
our Golf
story.
Tech.
This is another amazing story of how things just go in a loop. So I joined. It had 6 golf bays and had lessons, and so I joined to start getting lessons, and it was going out of business. And so my friend, the one that introduced me to it, and I said, "Hey, why don't we buy it?" So we bought it, and we moved it into downtown middle of Melbourne, got like a 6,000 square foot space on one of the main roads, and built Golf Tech Australia. And I really like. I just at that point, even just before we started, like I just fell in love with golf. I don't know, like it must have been that one shot that was like perfect,
Yeah.
and that was it. I was hooked for life. And I fell in love with it, and I'm just so addicted to this day. But the story with Golf Tech is interesting, and I'm sorry, kind of going on this windy road, but it
That's
does
okay.
have like a
And we got to go way back here in a second because you're leaving out
okay,
a ton of stuff that
okay,
I
okay.
want to talk about. But you can go ahead, keep going.
Okay, so and then one day I get a phone call from Joe Assel, the founder and CEO of Golf Tech
Mm-hmm.
USA, and he's like, kind of, who the hell are you, and why do you have our name? I'm like, who the hell are you? Um, and we became friends, and I came out to Denver to visit them. They came out to Australia. We took him out to Royal Melbourne. He took me out to Cherry Hills over in Denver. Obviously, amazing course there, and we tried to merge the businesses, but it failed. And then. Um, um, in touch, but stayed as friends. And then I got out of kind of Golf Tech, started this thing called 24/7 Golf, which was, I think, maybe first in the world, like unmanned 24-hour golf
Right.
simulator business where you
Just
could
come
go
in,
in anytime.
swipe, and just
Hmm.
hit and practice.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
then I opened the first one near my house. It did quite well. And then I opened a second one in downtown, but it was up 2 flights of stairs. It was a terrible location. And long story short, it went out of business. And I had 4 simulators left over. I'm like, what am I going to do with this? I kind of try to, I lost a lot of money at this time.
Mhm.
So I'm like, I'm going to sell this on Facebook Marketplace. So I did. And it sold like really quickly and really, I'm like, oh, this is cool. So
Is that
but
when Golf Tech bought that, or is that just
no, no,
just an
no.
individual just bought it just for their
No,
own?
that was me. I just sold it on Facebook Marketplace to 4
Yeah, but
random
who
people.
bought it though?
Just people
Yeah, yeah,
on
that's
that
just okay. Yeah, just
for the
random
house.
people for
Yeah.
the house. Gotcha.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
And then uh, and then I went, well, this is kind of interesting. So this time I was Joe Ass introduced me to Skytrack. And so I bought a few more Skytracks and I sold those online. And I went, this is so much easier than running this venue. So I closed my other one and I
Yeah.
pivoted 24/7 Golf to e-commerce. And then in Australia, you couldn't get enclosures and it was a very small market. So no one would service it from the US. It was too expensive to ship. So I developed my own enclosure and mats and all of those accessories and I started manufacturing in China. I'm really condensing this part of the story.
Yeah, it's
Moved to
okay.
expanded to the US, opened in Europe as well, then moved to the US, and I was pitching Golf Tech and Skytrack to sell my enclosures as part of their business to their customers. And one day Joe called me and was like, "Hey, we just bought Skytrack and we'd like to buy your business." I went, "Oh,
Yeah.
that's interesting." And here I am. So I sold my company to Golf Tech, 12, 13 years after first meeting them, and through that one phone call. So that's
That's
kind of the
awesome.
loop of kind of how
Yeah,
I ended
yeah.
up here.
No, it's good. And but I want to go back though. I like to.
Yeah, what did I leave out?
Yeah, well, there's a lot, right? So it's like I think the entrepreneurial journey. What I'm always fascinated by, and we talk about this in the golf business too, is the failures that lead to success, right?
Yeah,
So, and especially with you guys, because you're working without a net, right? It's like you've got
yeah,
this big idea, and I want to dig in. I want to dig more into the process of like how these ideas come about, and I've got a lot of questions about that. But so I'm gonna help you out here, okay? So
yeah, yeah,
you you graduate high school, you go through college, right? And
yep,
you're working the whole time, right? It's like
yeah.
you got a
I
lot of
basically
really
don't turn up. I don't turn up to college. I just don't turn up to the exam. And
Right, but you got an degree somehow.
I did, yeah. Somehow I don't know how.
Right,
It's,
but the point is the mindset is you were working the whole time, right? You talk
yeah,
about that little step, and then you started building businesses right out of when you at your early 20s, right?
yeah.
And then you lose money, like, and then you like talk
Lose
through
money is
that
an
part.
understatement. All right, lose
Yeah,
money is
yeah,
an
yeah.
understatement.
That's what I want to know.
All right, got it. So look, I've always wanted to run business, right? I love the idea of building something you know, I used to play computer games when I was a kid. My favorite game was Civilization, Sid Meier's Civilizations, best game in the world ever made, I think. And you know, you build empires and stuff, and it was
What's the
awesome.
equivalent nowadays for these kids?
Um, oh, you know, the funny thing is, there's nothing really equivalent. The
Really?
last Civilization was Civ 6, I think, maybe 15 years ago, and
Okay.
it hasn't been the same since.
Yeah.
It was a true strategy game, and to be honest, I haven't played games for a long
There's
time,
another idea
so
for you.
yeah, I know. Maybe there is something now, but I just don't know. Um,
Fortnite has kind of gotten
but
got
yeah,
it
I know.
all got the block, I think.
Don't worry. My 9-year-old is on Fortnite. He's on it right now, actually.
There you go.
Um, so I wanted to run my own business, but I mean, we came to Australia with $200 and 4 suitcases, and that was it. My parents, you know, they were in their mid 30s. You know, with a kid, we didn't speak English. Um, we just
Unbelievable.
came, yeah, we
Yeah.
just landed. And it's like, what do you do, right? And you hustle. Um, and I think this is, I'm going to make a motherhood statement here. This is what makes countries like America great, Australia great. Like the hustle of the immigrant is unbeatable. Now I'm, you know, a little bit more successful, and I'm part of this a network called the Entrepreneurs Organization, where
Mhm.
founders, owners join, and it's a networking thing, but you have these really amazing meetings. And then I'm part of this sort of this dad's club thing where people talk about how to be a great dad as well as a great entrepreneur. And we were sitting at a table one day and talking about how we're all came from nothing. You know, there was, I think, 10 of us at the table, and we're all successful, and we'll have kids. And we're like, how do we teach our kids the hunger that we had?
Mhm.
And someone made a statement that I want to put on a plaque, right? And it says, you cannot fake poverty.
That's right. Yeah, I heard you talk about that on another show. That's the one I
Yeah,
was talking.
I
That's the
love
stories
that.
that I want because yeah, and I'm going through the same thing. It's like we can't really simulate that, and we don't really want to, right? It's
No,
like yeah,
you got to use something else.
right,
You got,
exactly. So
uh,
so continue because I think
yeah.
that's a big part of it is like the you coming regardless. And I work with a lot of players that come from Asia and they come over
Mm,
and they can't speak English. It's like that's a hurdle, right? I mean, we haven't had to deal with that here in America, right?
correct.
It's unbelievable, right? It's like the battles and the obstacles that you've gone through. Like how was that in high school? Like how long did it take you to feel comfortable just like making
A,
friends and then
a
moving
long
on
time.
to yeah.
Yeah, a
So
long time. I mean, I probably, even through, you know what? I almost never felt comfortable. Uh, and maybe that's the secret to it. You know,
I think so.
I mean, comfort breeds complacency, I think, and complacency is a
100%.
very dangerous and a slippery slope. Um, I mean, even speaking to me now, like it's like I can speak 2 languages completely fluently without accent. Well, with an Aussie accent, maybe. I don't know if I got my Texas twang yet, but
You got
um,
half and half, I think, right
okay, right.
now.
So you know, uh, like the language barrier, but also, you know, you see other kids um, have all these things, and you want these things, and you want, you know. And I remember buying my first car. You know, uh, um, I bought a Ford Capri blue convertible, and I had to borrow. I didn't have the money, so I borrowed money from a friend of my parents. And I said, "Could I please borrow some $12,000?" I was
Mhm.
18, 17, 17 or 18, I can't remember, whatever, right? And 98, so it's a lot of money. And I had to go and build a business, get a job, you know, or like I was contracting. So it was like a bit, I was like a self-employed, you know, contractor, and I was building websites, and I was good at it. Um, and you know, I had to borrow money to buy my first car. I almost borrow money like at all points. And um, the other great skill that I think that kind of I learned um, by surprise, because I was a really good tech guy. I was a super geek, and which I get from my dad. My dad's a software engineer, still works full time, and but you know, I was good at that, and that got me a good head start in my career in IT.
Sure.
But then at one point, I was in consulting and like like IT consulting, and I started uh, winning a lot of work for my employer. Like I would go into a project and I would find out opportunities and I would get the opportunities.
Hmm.
And which in the end, when I was the youngest senior consultant for a company called SAP, big German company. I think they sponsor a lot of
Right.
golf. I was the youngest senior consultant. I was 22 in the whole world out of 20, 30,000 employees. And then they told me that I have to stay there for 10 years because I was too young,
Mm.
which didn't go down well with me.
Mm.
And so I
Yeah.
quit and started my own business, competing with
Did.
them.
Yeah. It's like that's the entrepreneur spirit, right? Like you really don't want to work for anybody.
No,
Right?
I really have figured out that I'm basically unemployable.
Yeah, I love it.
And
Yeah.
and but but then again, like if you when I hire people, I also try to make the most. I try to leave the runway for them because that's what I wanted people to let me do, is just give me a
Sure.
runway and let me do my best. But we'll come back to that.
Yeah. There were three
And
stories that you talked about where you built businesses, you lost
everything.
everything, you
Yeah.
built business, and I think there were some real learning moments in there that you shared with
Sure. So there
another
was
podcast that I would think would be very valuable for the listeners.
so the first actual business I built, the first thing my first success was with property. I read one
Right.
of my dad's friends, whose name's Igor, as well. If maybe he's listening, although I'm the only Igor in the whole golf industry, by the way, so just easy to remember.
Yes.
Um, he gave me Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki when I
Great
was about
book.
19. Great book.
Yep.
Actually, I just bought the kids version for my son yesterday. It arrived on Amazon. He started reading it yesterday, and I was
Brilliant.
in heaven.
Yeah.
He was telling me about what he learned. My heart was melting. It was great. And so I read that book, and then he had at the time he had another book, like one of his advisors, called Real Estate Riches by Dolph DeRoos, who was a Kiwi, a New Zealander. And I read that, and it was basically buy, renovate, revalue, get the equity out, buy the next one, and etc. And my parents helped me buy the first one when I was 20, and I just basically went, this sounds like a good plan, and I ended up with, I think, 14 properties in 2 years. So 3.5 million in value, probably maybe $1 million in equity at that point because I would like
Wow.
buy and revalue. But at the same time, and again, this is I don't know if I went into this story in other podcasts, but I was also very miserable. I was going through really bad depression, and I only started talking about just how bad that depression was only a couple of years ago. Like it took me
Yeah.
a long time to be able to talk about just how. So on one side, I had all this money, paper money.
Right.
And all my friends were still at college. A lot of my friends are doctors and lawyers, so they stayed till like their late 20s in college.
Yeah.
And I was finished by at 20 years old. I was finished college. I was living by myself in Bondi Beach, which is like paradise on earth. And but I was really lonely and really miserable. And
Yeah. Why do you think you were sad?
it was just very lonely because I kind of went through my growth phase so early in my life.
Yeah.
And all my friends were still, they were, I remember going on a Kentucky trip. Kentucky is, it's this, in Europe, they do this trip, it's like backpackers, but it's like really cheap. And it's just, you drink around Europe basically. And I already had my Platinum Amex, and so I'm like, these guys are like putting coins together to pay for a beer. And I'm like, I just throw Platinum Amex on the bar and go,
You're
it's
a
on
rich
me.
man.
Yeah, exactly. And so like I was just so ahead of all of this, and I had a career, and I had traveled. I started traveling the world with work. And work in Asia, and so it was very lonely at the top. Which that's what it felt like. Like I was at the top of this mountain, and I was all by myself, and it was really and also I wasn't healthy. And so I was very overweight. I had a terrible diet. And because when we came to Australia, right, you got to think about this, right? We landed May 10th, right, 1991. So on May 8th, when we're in Moscow, leaving, right, you go. There's no supermarkets. Like there's shops, but there's no supermarket. You go into a shop, there's shelves. There's nothing on the shelves, right? If you want to buy something, you have to go to the black market, right? So there's no food, and we landed in Australia, and I remember like a 2 minute walk from my house was a supermarket. It's a small one, not a big, not like a Walmart, like a little corner supermarket. And we
Right.
walk in, and our jaws just dropped. It's like
Yeah.
there's
The whole
just
world opened up.
shelves just stacked with just food and drinks, and so Tim Tams, and which is a great Australian dessert, like biscuit, and so we would just eat like there was no tomorrow because we never had that. So we ballooned out. I was like 240 pounds when I was 13 years old. So it's very unhealthy. I was traveling on, very very sort of lonely, and just a recipe, away from my family, recipe for a good recipe for disaster, really.
Sure.
And so, but I got into all these self-help books, and they said you have to quit your job to be happy. So I did, and
I forgot to tell you they need another job first before you quit the job.
yeah, they forgot to say like you need cash flow to survive.
There you go. Yeah, I never get to that.
Especially when you have 14 mortgages, right? And so,
Right. Yeah.
and something happened freaky. Talk about sliding doors moments, right? So
Yeah.
the bank, I had bought all these properties, like the last 8 properties I bought at that time, the bank never called my employer to check my employment. And when I was just closing on one of my deals, they randomly decided to call.
Hmm.
And I had like all my properties with one bank, and they were told, "Oh, he doesn't work here anymore. He quit last month," and that's a breach of contract.
Oh
And
my gosh.
so basically, they called me and said, "You have like 30 days to basically fire sell the properties or this." And I was 22. I had no idea what I was
Oh my
doing.
gosh. That's crazy.
So I lost, and that before that, I also started investing with this other. I call it the 3 idiots, and I was the 4th idiot. Into this business, marketing business. Was a terrible idea, and I put in a lot of my equity. Long story short, I lost everything but 2 properties. So I lost 12 out of 14 properties at a fire sale. The bank basically took it from under me.
Yeah.
And that's probably one of my stories which I talk about a little bit, where I had nothing. I had my car, red sports car, of course.
Yeah. I love this one.
Yeah, and I'm like, I have to go find some work. So I called my former this company in Queensland called Powerland Queensland, I used to do some work at when I was with SAP. And I said, look, do you need any help? And I said, yeah, we'd love to have you over. And so they're like, come up. This was like a Thursday, and they're like, come up, start on Monday, or something like that. It was a very quick turnaround.
Mm-hmm.
And I get into my Honda or Integra Type R, and I drive from Sydney to Brisbane, and it's like I remember I had no money for petrol. I had a full tank. I had enough just to get there, and then I was driving into Brisbane. I remember I organized to stay with a friend for free, and I pulled into a petrol station. I was starving. I had no money for food, just enough for petrol, and that's the story where I was like, I need calories and I need caffeine.
Yeah.
I'm like, so the only thing that can meet that criteria is a Coke.
Oh gosh.
So I had bought a can of Coke for $1.80, and I had a $2 coin, and I got 20 cents change. And I remember looking at that 20 cents going, this is all I got.
Wow.
I'm like, what am I doing? And it took me like, I don't know how many, 20 years to be able to share that story, because I was too embarrassed to tell my parents, because they bailed me out so many times, and, I'm forever grateful to them. They know that. But we went through a pain. But,
and you've got an interview tomorrow.
Yeah.
Try to make some money.
Yeah, pretty much. And it was, and I had like, I had to like a dry cleaning suit. This is back in the day where you couldn't just go to work in this. You actually had to have a suit.
Yeah.
Actually, this is another story. This is I think what people, if you talk about entrepreneurship, right, there's all these stories of huge success. I love reading biographies of huge success, but what people, and one of my favorite one, and if you haven't read it, you must, right, is Shoe Dog by the guy that started Nike.
Oh yeah.
That is the best
book. I need to
book.
read that.
It's amazing because he tells it for real. Because a lot of success comes from very tiny sliding doors moments, little bits of luck, of bad luck or good luck. So I had to dry clean my suit. I'm like, how am I going to get my suit dry cleaned? I don't have any money. And I was too embarrassed to ask like my friend or even my parents. I stopped talking to them because I was so embarrassed about my situation. And I had this really fat wallet, right? I had like way fatter than this. and and it had all these papers in it. I used to like be like a receipt hoarder because I had to submit receipts for my work. And I'm like, I'm just gonna start going through my wallet. Maybe there's like a $20 note hidden somewhere, And I found two checks, uncashed checks that I had. They were sitting in my wallet. They were like $600-700, right?
Yeah.
But it was a Sunday. Like, and so I went to a place called Cash Converters, which is basically a pawn shop, and they will cash your check, but take a 30% cut.
Oh yeah, they're gonna take a cut. Yeah.
Right. So I did that because I'm like, I needed the money.
You had to.
So and then I used that money to do like an overnight dry cleaning of the suit. And I turned up on Monday for work. And from that Monday to 4 years later, I built a company that was doing 4.5 million revenue.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Right.
Now, what was that company? What was that?
So that was called Adept Connections. It was a SAP consulting business. So it was like in change management, training, sort of implementing these big projects and teaching people how to kind of adopt new processes and do process redesign. And but this kind of brings me back. If I had to kind of share what made me successful, because it took me a while to realize what it was. I was going on instinct. It took me reflection later to work out what it was. And I asked them. I said, why did you say yes to me? I was 23. Like I was a little schmuck. Like why did you take me? And but they said, out of all the consultants, and they had, like Anderson Consulting and, before Accenture, right? And Deloitte, and they had all these guys, and they picked me, and they said, whenever we come to you with a problem, your answer was always, let me work it out. And you'd go away and you'd work it out. Because you never said, oh, look, that can't be done. Nah, it's not possible. And basically it was that attitude that allowed me to win all this. I would win work with the biggest companies in Australia, multi-billion-dollar companies, multinationals. And it was all because I just always I would always try to find a way to get a solution. And
I think that's where golf instruction, at least on my side, is synonymous with what you do. Is we're just trying to solve problems, right? But you got to know what the problem is, right? Like that's when you talked about. I love how you talk about. Like one of the questions I was going to ask you is like, where do the ideas come from? Like you got to have a problem first. Well, and then it's up to you to create the solution, and now you have an idea, right?
Yeah. So, someone came to me the other day with an idea, business idea, and I listened to him, and I kind of said, "Look, I'll come back to you tomorrow. I have reservations," and so I called him back and I said, "Listen, you have a solution looking for a problem.
That's a wrong direction.
Completely. You'll never succeed with that. So you got to see. You got to be successful in business. You need to see problems. And there's a great book called The Trick to Money is Having Some. Another one of my favorites. And he says there's a really simple way to making money. Like, because this is just one secret, which is find a problem that needs solving, solve it, and people will pay you. The bigger the problem, the more people, the more money you make.
Yeah. The need.
It's the end of the formula.
Yeah.
Find
the need. Yeah, exactly. I love that.
Yeah. And so when I started this business, which I didn't intend to start, this consulting company, I mean, I guess the problem was that these companies had these projects and they had these, they needed to train their people and people, there was just no one really providing that ability to solve that problem. And so
the other problem that you were broke.
Yeah. That was a big problem.
Right. It's that's I think that's what makes you tick though. It's like you've come from such, like you said, means that you're hungrier than everybody else that's like kind of grown up with it.
But is the same, I heard that, with golf as well. Like if you think about the most successful golfers, like aren't they the ones who are they just out hunger you? They're like, I don't know, Tiger, like some.
Yeah, there's something in there, right? It's like, because that's, I mean, one of the questions you kind of already answered was like, where does that come from, right? It's like, you think you're born with it. I mean, there has to be some parental guidance there, especially coming from a communist company or a country where it's like it's the opposite of what they would like instill in you. Like that's, I mean, it's amazing. That's why your journey's so amazing. It's like you've broken the mold of really where you grew up, right?
I think naturally we want to be able to I think if you've grown up in a very poor area, I watched for the first time somehow on the last flight I had a few days ago, I watched 8 Mile, the M&M story.
Oh yeah, seen it a
And
hundred times.
like you look at it's just wow. How
Unbelievable.
do you survive that? Let alone go to that point.
Yeah.
And I was watching another podcast with Jordan Peterson with Adrian Grenier, Vince in The Entourage, which was one of my favorite shows
Hmm.
of all time.
Yeah, me too.
He was the same. He was living on the streets of New York.
Yeah.
It just I think there's something about having that hunger, and if you can be hungrier than anyone else in the room, you will find a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas other people they go, well, look, if I don't find a way, I can still eat. It's like if you can't eat,
Yeah.
right?
Survival.
It's
Right. I mean, like
survival.
it's truly survival. All right. All right. So continue because you go now. You've built this business, and
Yeah.
the next story before we get to your golf story is my favorite, and I have
So
some
there's
questions about this one.
okay. I hope it's the right story. Basically, the short version is I built this business. I gave 40% of the business to this couple that used to work for me. Is that the
That's the
story?
one. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so as I was building the business, I had about I can't remember. I think I got to about 6, 7 people, and I'm like I'm really good at sales. I just figured that out was by accident. Right? I'm good at sales. I'm like I need to. And by the way, that's the first skill I taught my kids
Yes.
how to
There you
sell.
go.
I'm
Yep.
like my kids sorry can sell ice to Eskimos. Great. Except they negotiate with me all the time. It's really annoying. But
Yeah, when they come back at you, it's not so
yeah. I
fun.
planted the seed, so I gotta take responsibility.
Yeah.
And so these guys are working for me. They're a couple, and I said, look, why don't you run the projects? I'll do the sales. You run the projects. And that's what happened. And we ended up building to 22 consultants, and we, it was succeeding really well. And then all of a sudden, I woke up one day with this really bad feeling, and in a panic attack. Can we pause this for a second?
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're good. Look, I got
Okay.
an editor. We can edit them out.
Okay.
Do you want to get on camera?
This is my. Hmm? You a bit hungry?
I'll interview
Get a
him.
yasso. I have my daughter. Come
No,
say
it's your
hi.
daughter or her.
You can have another one, okay? She's 5.
Oh wow. Yeah. Remember
Um,
those days.
so I woke up one day, just in this massive panic attack. I remember to this day I was working with Village Roadshow, which is one of the main movie distribution companies. They actually own the Topgolf franchise for Australia now.
Okay.
And I had a project. Hey, I woke up. I was just like, something's wrong, and I had this horrible feeling. And I called my lawyers, and I called my this, and I called my that, like, advisors, and I said, look, I think something's bad happening. And they said, no, no, no. I don't know. I convinced them. They convinced me. Whatever. That everything's okay. 6 months later, these guys did a backdoor contract with 2 of the biggest customers I have, which is one of the biggest companies in the world, Rio Tinto. And basically, literally overnight, I lost 80% of my revenue. 1st of January 2007.
Yeah. So there's where I have the question.
Yes.
All right. So that, and you left out a little bit of a part of that where, like you said, you weren't real happy with the direction you were going. You said you were kind of miserable with what's. It's almost like you're ready to move on, right? But you've got these people around you, and you're doing the sales work, and they're not recognizing like how valuable, like, you built this whole business, right? And this is what's interesting, because it's almost like the boss that's like built the whole thing, and then the employees are like, oh, he's not doing anything. He's just showing up and like having coffee with somebody, and like,
that's what they said. They literally, that's what they complained was like, you have coffee all the time. Like, yeah, it's called sales.
Yeah, exactly. So my point is, and this is one of the questions, and this just goes into a general, like, building a business, entrepreneurship is like, what's more important, the people you surround yourself with or the plan? Like, it sounded like that was a people problem.
Yeah, look,
They were clearly not loyal, because you'd put food on their table and give them a great job.
It's definitely the people. You have to, and I've made a mistake with people plenty of times in my career.
We all have, yeah.
We all have, and I will I still will. Like one of my mentors said that I fall in love with people too much. Like I see the best in them. But you know what? It's who I am, and that's who I want to be.
Right.
And I prefer that than being paranoid and miserable and always looking over my shoulder. I'd rather trust people, and until they break my trust. You just got to manage your risk. But yeah, we built this amazing company, and but I hated it every day. I hated the personalities that I was working with. I I was really, again, like, back to sort of depression. I was really miserable. I was making more money than I ever had in my life,
Hmm.
and I was just utterly miserable. Um, and I guess there's a plenty of self help, Tony Robbins type of things that talk about self sabotage, and I'm sure
Yeah.
that relates to golf. I'm sure we can talk about that a bit. But
Well, I'm a
we
big Tony Robbins fan. Like a bit, I'm going way back to Jim Rohn, Tony
oh yeah,
Robbins.
love
Oh
Jim
yeah,
Rohn.
Zig Ziglar, all the old
Yeah.
school guys. That's what I
Have
cut
you
my
have you
teeth
listened to
on.
Richard Bandler?
No, I've not heard
So
that
Richard
name.
Bandler and John Grinder invented NLP, and Tony Robbins licensed it from them.
Okay.
And I love, so to me, Richard Bandler is one of the most amazing geniuses, and I've watched all his videos and all his courses.
I'll have to check him out.
Yeah, he talks a lot about the mental. He actually talks about a golfer he worked with back in the 80s, and he said he has this thing, and I try to use this, and this is a really interesting. Let's switch to golf for a second, because
Yeah, we
we'll
can.
come back to the business.
Yeah, for sure.
So I have this. When I was last week at this, or 2 weeks ago, when I was at this golf academy for 3 days, I was saying that, look, if you put a tree in front of me, water to the left, green tucked in on the right, and I have to hit, like, and actually I hit the shot of my life just the other week, right? It's a par five, 18th on my Castle Hills at my course, dogleg left. I hooked my drive, but I carried all the trouble, the water, and I'm in the rough on the left, but there's a tree in front of me about 10 yards, and the branches are thick, and so they basically, the green is 240 yards away. There's a creek in front of the green. There's like a wall over the creek, so you have to go uphill, right?
Hmm.
About 20 feet up from where I am, and the greens, left bunkers, right bunkers, and I'm like, I was saying, it was the first round after my academy, so I'm like, whatever, this round's gonna suck anyway. And I hit it, and I'm like, I have two friends with me, right? And I'm saying, I'm gonna take a driver off the deck, off the rough, right? And I'm gonna
POG in the
sting it
rough. Okay.
in the rough, and I'm gonna sting it and make it lift up. I have no idea how I'm gonna do this, right? But I'm just gonna tell my body to do this. And I hit the shot that basically stayed no more than 7 feet above the ground, and it started rising where the wall is, where the creek is. And I hit the green and actually rolled through the green
Oh my gosh.
on this par five, right?
Yeah.
And the guys were going crazy. They're like, "How'd you do this?" They were screaming, like it's like an eagle. Like, they were screaming. And this is my thing in golf. Like, you give me the impossible shot and I can execute it. You give me a 40-foot wide fairway, and I will, like, I don't know where it's going.
Yeah.
So
No,
we should battle it.
you're the create. Yeah, you're the
I'm the
creative
creative guy,
side. Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
I mean, that's your mindset, and
And so
your learning
Richard
style.
Bandler has this thing. He talks about this hypnosis session he did with a golfer back in the 80s.
Mm.
And he said he would say, so pick your target. He goes, oh, it's this like this part of the fairway. He goes, no, pick a blade of grass on the fairway.
Specific. Yeah.
Right. And then he said, and then bring that blade about 10 feet in front of you. And imagine you putting the ball onto that blade of grass. And he said, I can't tell you who the golfer is, but he says he won some pretty big tournaments,
Uh-huh.
And I love that story. And so anyway, that's but you know what? Same applies in business.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
if you go, well, I just want to make $1 million. Okay, how? It's just, you're just never going to get there. And I used to be one of those guys. I used to be like, I want to be a billionaire by the time I'm 30, right? That's not a goal.
No, you got to have
That's
a process,
a delusion.
right?
Yeah.
And,
So.
And I think it's, and like Jim Rohn says, it's not about the $1 million. It's about the journey, right?
It's such a cliche.
What you're becoming in the process of getting the $1 million.
And it is important. so cliche, but it's so true. It is almost annoyingly so.
Right. Exactly.
And that's probably, to kind of bring back to your question you asked more at the beginning. I have had, and I had this conversation with my son just recently, actually, who's 9. I have failed 1 million times, and I've succeeded maybe 10 times. Like as a ratio, right? It's probably not that bad, but basically, I probably started 20 businesses, and I've succeeded maybe in 2, right? But what those failures have done, and I wouldn't change it for the world. I know it sounds, again, cliche. I just, sound like one of those Hollywood movies. Um, I wouldn't change it because it made me who I am today.
That's
It
right.
made my skin so thick that I don't work. I don't sweat the little stuff, you know. And
Yeah.
you know, one of the other stories which I go into sometimes is, you know, we had unfortunately a little boy that didn't make it between my
Oh.
oldest and my youngest.
Mm.
He passed away a day before his C-section due date. So he was he died in the womb
Oh man.
at 38, you know, 39 weeks almost. And you know, I went through the process of like and some of the stuff that's happening in the world right now, you know, kind of drives this point home, right? When you bury a little casket this big, you know, and you realize how all the stuff you think is really important is completely meaningless.
Wow.
It's utterly meaningless. And so you, in the moment when you are like when the bank is calling you, when the credit card comes, or whatever, right? You go, you know what? Everyone's still alive. Like, who
Yeah.
cares? Like,
Yeah.
they'll wait.
Mm.
And that's one of the lessons I've taught. You know, I've done a couple of speaking events where people ask me like, how did you survive? Like, because I would get 4 to 8, you know, unlisted numbers calling me a day. You know, tax
Sure.
department, bank, credit card company, car company, whatever. How did you survive that? And I'm like, you know what? Everyone just waits. As long as you communicate,
Right.
as long as you don't hide from it. But if you pick up the phone and say, guys, I would love to give you the $100,000 I owe you. I would love to. You have no idea. I want to give it to you more than you want to take it from me. But if I don't have it, if I could come up like this with $100,000, like we wouldn't be having this conversation, right? But I don't have it. So I need time to find a way to make it. And you'd be amazed how, you know, and those periods when I was in my lowest point in my career, you know, I was $1 million in debt at one point. But I
Mm.
tell everyone, I'm like the Lannisters. I always pay my debts. And and uh, you know, I would just negotiate. I was telling them, listen, guys, I'm doing this. I'm getting this job. I'm getting this contract. I'm going to get paid this on this date. I'm
Right.
going to take half of that. And I'm going to pay you guys,
As
right?
long
Because
as
I
they
need the
see
other
you're
half to pay for
trying,
food.
right? I mean, like
Yeah,
you're at least giving an effort. Like they're gonna
and you're
listen.
genuine. And like what? So most people have to realize the people that have lent you money, like banks, credit cards, like they would rather see 50 cents in the dollar than 0 cents in the dollar.
Yeah, that's right.
But if you
Um,
show them that you are working to give them a dollar for the dollar, you will gain their respect, and you will actually. And again, it's you create a target for yourself.
right.
Like so, I would say like I want to pay $200 a week to this credit card company, right? It seems insignificant on a $50,000 credit card balance, right? But those little habits that you build, eventually you can add another zero to it, and then eventually another zero. And it's those little steps that end up, and whether you're climbing out of a hole or you're climbing up a ladder, you know, climbing to your kind of, you know, your dreams, the actual process doesn't really change. Just your stress levels do.
100%. Yeah, I get it. I've been through that in the past. So let's go back to sales. I think that's an important because again, parallels to what I do and what you do
Mm.
is huge. As golf instructors, we're always trying to sell change or sell our plan or do the side hustle stuff that I've always had that sort of entrepreneur mindset to try to create passive income. I haven't done
Hmm.
an amazing job of it, but it's I've had a lot of failures and successes over the years as well. But you say you've never been trained in sales, but it sounds like that if you're reading books and you're listening to
Self-trained.
CDs and stuff that exactly, you're doing some stuff like where do you think that came from and like the evolution of
Yes.
where you are
So,
now?
yeah, I mean, you're right. It's not. It wouldn't be fair for me to say I'm not trained in sales. I
Just
actually
because you
have
didn't go
done.
to a class, right?
I didn't go to a class, but I've
Yeah.
done literally every single sales course on the market. I've even done the Wolf of Wall Street. You know, his
Oh my
straight line.
gosh.
He's got straight line
Jordan,
persuasion. It's actually, yeah, John. It's actually crap, but I've
I
done it.
love it.
Uh,
Yeah.
and but I didn't pay for it because he doesn't deserve it. But different conversation. But I've done all. So for me, I was fascinated. You know what? And this is a really important point at a high level, right? I fell in love with sales. Like I don't call it sales. For me, it's influencing, right? It's the
Right.
ability to how do people influence other people? How do ideas influence people? And so the whole my journey with Tony Robbins and NLP and Ericksonian hypnosis and all of that, I I couldn't get enough information, like enough books, courses to learn how our brains work. And I was kind of the same with golf. Like I can talk into pretty significant, pretty deep detail about the golf swing because that's just how my brain works. Like I want to go deep.
Yeah,
Um,
we'll definitely do that before we wrap.
yeah, and but the main thing is if you and I think Steve Jobs said this. Yeah, or maybe there's plenty of people who said this. It's like if you are so passionate about it, um, something, whatever it is, right?
Hmm.
That you are prepared to, there's an Aussie phrase, okay? It's a bit crass. It's walk through 4 feet of shit wearing 3 foot gumboots, right?
I love it.
Yeah, one of my lecturers taught me that back at school.
Little
Uh,
Gary Vaynerchuk there
yeah,
as well.
a little bit, but it was from a very
Eat
very
shit.
country Aussie teacher. I remember told me that at school. But if you're willing to do what no one else is willing to do, and so for me, sales was like it was that process. Like I love I love getting better. And Tony Robbins talks about when he would go like to like a McDonald's and like stand in line and like talk to people and try to and people think he was crazy, but it's like but he wasn't. To him, he wasn't crazy. He was just so passionate about it.
Right.
And I felt like, and this is where, again, cliche, find what you're passionate about, then it
Yeah.
won't feel like work and you'll succeed. Yes, cliche, but still true,
Yeah. And you
you
go
know?
through all these cycles, right? Like all the stuff you were going through, you knew you were searching for something,
Yeah,
right? And then we'll get to the golf thing, which sounds like you found it, right? It's like, but you had to go through all the shit
yeah,
to get
absolutely.
there. Yeah.
And I've hired plenty of golf coaches that have worked for me in the past, and they hated golf. I'm like, why are you in golf? Why are you teaching golf if you hate golf? Because it's kind of what they know what to do, but they hate it. Um, you can't succeed with that. You can't succeed doing something you hate. And I've had people have told me, "Oh, you could go sell, this or that," and I'm like, "Yeah, but I don't like it, so
Right.
I can't bring that fakeness. Like I'm not like Wolf of Wall Street. Like I can't fake it.
Yeah.
I can't just steal money from you. Um, some people can. I can't. And but you need to find that passion if you want to succeed. And if for me, it's like I'm so lucky because golf is something I love, and I found a business opportunity in it. Multiple business opportunities in it.
Right.
But you could be a golf pro teaching people, and I don't know, make art. I'm just making stuff but like, but at least do something that fills your cup of creativity and passion, even if you don't get it in your kind of your day job. Because if you please do that, you can get through the day job much easier. You got something to look
Yeah.
forward to. I think that's a good way to kind of get through life.
Yeah. Your side hustle can become your full time job
Yep, I'm a
eventually,
big
right?
fan.
And that's what
I'm a
you
big
kind
fan of
of
side
did.
hustles.
Yeah.
All my staff, I tell them, hey, you want to have a side hustle? I support you.
Yeah.
No problem. Like
But
because it makes
don't
them
quit your
better.
job until you have another
Yeah, yeah.
job. That's what I think you
Uh,
learned along the way there too. It's like, yeah, I just got
uh,
to quit because I'm unhappy. Like, okay, now
yeah,
I got to pay my
yeah.
bills and pay the.
Cash flow's king. Cash flow's king.
I
Yeah.
love it. All right, so talk about when you got into golf. You kind of alluded to it earlier, and then tell us what you're doing now with simulators
Yeah. So
and the
obviously,
passion.
yeah. Like so, I've been obviously golf simulator space. Manufacturing golf simulators, like the enclosures and the screens, and then there was this talk about sliding doors moments yet again. So I had SkyTrack launch monitors right in
Hmm.
my indoor studios, and SkyTrack doesn't have its own like video software, right? And I didn't have the money to buy like Swing Catalyst, which was kind of the main product back what 2016 it was. And so I hired a guy that to write some software that would kind of when the SkyTrack shot would trigger, it would kind of rewind back the video and kind of play it for my clients on a second TV. And I was using these USB cameras and they were okay. I'm like, and I had a Samsung S9 at the time, right? So this is how long ago this was,
Hmm.
Samsung S9. And I said, I wonder if this phone could do a better job as a camera than the camera. And so we hooked up 2 phones. And it did a really good job. I'm like, would we use this phone to track the ball? And 7 years later, yes, we can. but it took 7 years to get there.
Yeah, you had to
Uh,
hire somebody that writes
I
code
hi- yeah,
and does some
yeah. I
stuff,
mean,
right?
I have 15 staff now. And it's but basically, yeah. I mean, so the e-commerce and I use the e-commerce again, talking about side hustles, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the e-commerce business, like I enjoyed, I loved it. But this app, Golf Trak, which we'll get into, I'm sure, but
Yes,
that was like my spark. I'm like, this is how I want to put my mark on this industry.
gotcha.
and and so that business kind of allowed me to fund this business and grow it. And there was moments when I nearly gave up, and there were moments when my head developer just had a mental breakdown, wiped out all the code,
Ooh,
all of it. And he was like a hacker. He was a Russian hacker. So when he wipes it, like it was wiped.
oh my
Like,
gosh.
yeah. And so I had to start from scratch halfway through. Right.
Fuck.
But again, you know, at the time, I don't want to go into the detail. Actually, I think the first time I had I collapsed at one point. I remember literally I had such an anxiety attack that first time in my life I actually just went. I managed to walk into my doctor's office because I was driving past it. I'm like, I was like, I didn't know how I was driving. Like I pulled over, ran into them, opened the door, and just went bang on the
Yeah.
floor. And
Yeah.
they pulled me
People don't
up.
realize I went through
Yeah.
some panic attacks back in the day after almost dying in a marathon,
Oh wow.
running a marathon. Yeah. So I didn't connect those
Yeah.
two, but I think that sort of had something to do with it. And people don't realize like you don't know where you're at. Like you don't
No.
know your body is not functioning. You
Yeah,
think you're
there's
dying.
some autopilot. Yeah, there's some autopilot, and you
It's
think, yeah,
unbelievable. Yeah, it's not. I would not wish it on anyway. So
no,
I get what you're
no,
where you're at. But yeah,
absolutely.
sorry.
And
Continue.
so I had no, and so I went from that to I thought this is the end. I've spent all this time and money, and I've spent a few hundred thousand at that point. But at the time, especially, that was a lot of money for me.
Yeah.
Still is, don't get me wrong. Um, and but looking back, it's the best thing that could have happened to me.
Hmm.
And this is what people, I think, this is the hardest thing to tell someone as a lesson until you go through it yourself. You don't know whether what's happening to you right now is the worst thing or the best thing. You just don't know. And if you have a bit of faith in yourself, and God, if you believe in God, or the universe if you believe in the universe, or whatever, right? Or tarot cards if you believe in tarot cards. But whatever you believe in, right? But you got to have some faith that things that you have, actually, it's faith, and it's trust. You have to trust yourself to work it out. This is where, like, I think I've learned that along the way. When I have conversations with my kids and my wife, we talk about, trying to build resilience in my kids, right? And I talk about it. I'm saying you need to do the little things that show you that you are capable of achieving X, Y, Z, which builds trust in yourself. So I don't know what's coming tomorrow, but what I do know is that I have the skills to deal with it.
There you go. That's I was about to bring up what Jim Rohn always talks about is like they can take all the money away from you. You can have all these things happen. They cannot take away your skills.
That's right.
And
They
like,
kind of
and the
take away
thing
what's
that,
here.
yeah, absolutely. And what I admire the most about you is you've bet on yourself your entire life, right? Even though you've gone through ups and downs and depression and whatnot, but like you still have that inner driven passion to like, I know I can get out of this and I know I can provide for my family and I know I can go forward.
And
And
you
that's
have to be a little bit
unbelievable.
crazy. You have to be a little bit crazy to do that.
Yeah,
And this
absolutely.
is there's one interview where Steve Jobs and Bill Gates are on the same stage. I think it's only happened once or twice ever. Um, and they asked, like, how do you keep going? And both of them said the same thing, which is you have to be crazy enough to just believe that you will get to the end destination no matter what. And I don't know how to teach that to someone, except it's just there or it's not. Maybe I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I'm with you. I think it's because I mentor a lot of young coaches and the young professionals coming into the business. And it's like, you kind of gotta have it, right? It's like you have that it factor or, I don't know.
But
There's a lot of little indicators that we know,
there
but I'm
are,
sure it's
but
the same
you
way in your
also
business.
it is you also have to
Yeah.
give yourself talk about probabilities, right?
Yeah.
All you can do is work on the little steps that will give you the best possible probability of succeeding. you may not
100%.
succeed,
Yep. Yep.
but at least you've given yourself a chance.
So when did you launch Golf Trak? How long was I didn't see
So
the
yeah, 7 years in development. So we launched in September 22. We launched an open beta.
Okay.
We managed to get about 12,000 people to download it and use it, and we improved it. And then before the PGA show this year, so in January this year,
Right.
we launched the commercial version, and we're still going slowly, but we're about to, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we're about to announce a really a big deal with a big golf company, a collaboration where we're basically white labeling the app to other apps. So that we're I want to be like, what we're good at is really the technology that we built, which is for those that don't know, basically it's a launch window using the cameras on your phone.
I was about to say, describe how it's different, because I think that's the special thing about it is you're using your phone. You don't have to.
Yeah, so it's already in your pocket, right? It's at the moment it's iOS only, but hopefully we'll get to Android. It's a long story why, but basically what we do is the camera, the phone sits on a tripod about a driver length away from the ball. It works outdoors, indoors, like into a net, into a screen. We're integrated with E6 Connect, with GS Pro, with 2K21. We've got more software coming, and the idea is basically how do it's a race to the bottom, right? You've seen it in the market if you've been in the golf industry long enough. You had TrackMan, GC Quad, then SkyTrack was a huge thing in the market where they came out at $2,000 and delivered a professional grade product.
Right.
But now there's products like Garmin R10 and Rhapsody MLM2, and there's downward pressure on the market, right? Because the lower the price, the more people can afford it. Well, what's the lowest price?
That's
free.
The problem you're solving right now is like affordability, right?
Yeah, so it's like it's free, and it's affordability, and it's also risk, right? Because you could, like, at the moment, to get into the simulator space, you need to spend $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, right? That's a lot of risk to put in if you're not sure if it's going to really work for you. Right. So what I'm saying is, like, you can try this very risk-free. It's free. It's $100 a year, $150 a year if you want to play virtual courses, like $10 a month, right? You can buy a $50 mat on eBay or Amazon, $100 net, and off you go.
So is it giving you club delivery data, or is
it just
giving you ball data?
It gives you ball data. We do calculate club data. We have algorithms, but basically what we measure, I'll tell you what we measure, because so we can get a bit technical. So we measure ball speed, vertical launch angle, horizontal launch angle, launch direction, and we measure the club path, in to out, square, out to in. We need that to be able to calculate spin axis, distance, carry, height, etc., and also club face and all of that.
So it does have where the club face is and where the path is moving.
Yeah, so we know the path just for the shape of the shot, but basically everything else. And look, we are with and we're doing some pretty rigorous testing. We're call it between 5 and 8% on average, and we will get better because we use deep learning algorithms. The more data you feed it, the better it gets. Right? You've seen it with ChatGPT.
Yep.
We call it 5% error rate on like ball speed to a GC quad, plus or minus 1,000 RPM. For all clubs, we're like within 1 degree for launch angle, maybe a couple of degrees for direction, because of where the phone sometimes can shift and stuff. But the point is, we are so close to a $10,000, $20,000 device that it almost becomes a moot point. And this is where I kind of want my vision for Golf Trak is not to be a competitor to any of these products that are out there. Right. My vision is to open up a new market. My vision is what Topgolf did for the golf industry, which is it created a whole new market, a whole new people that never used to interact with golf, now love golf or their version of golf. I want to take that Topgolf experience and bring it home to people, right? So you can have it at home. You can have it with what you already have in your pocket. And you can play virtual golf. You can play games. You can get better. You can do training, whatever it is you want, you get it with your phone. Look at what's happened with GPS, golf GPS, right? You used to have all these devices, right? Now you have so many apps.
Right.
It's all in the apps. And now you have it on the watch. I've got my Ultra, where I use Golf Shot from Shot Zoom to track all my stats. It does auto swing detection. Got Swing ID now, which is super cool, et cetera, et cetera. So it's everything is becoming on your phone. We used to have cameras. We don't have cameras anymore. You used to have to scan things. Now you just take a photo and converts it straight to PDF and does OCR on it, right? That technology used to cost tens of thousands of dollars.
Right.
And this is what's happening in the golf industry, and it's happening not just in golf, in other sports, but to me, in golf, the launch monitor is a tool. It's just a means to an end. My vision is to allow people to have fun with it. Like I'm more entertainment. I want you to have a top golf experience at home, not a TrackMan experience. Not having go TrackMan, but just from a like a professional data point of view. I don't want you to be obsessed with your spin numbers. I want you to hit a shot and go, yeah, that's the shot I hit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Why do you think the 24/7 didn't take? Because that seems like it would be. I mean, it's like a turnkey. Deal.
So
maybe people abused it too much. Maybe like they took advantage of it?
It's a much simpler reason, and you're gonna laugh because it's happened so many times around the world. Wrong place, wrong time.
I know people are trying. It's still going.
There's hundreds of them now. Hundreds of them now.
Right.
I was too early, and I was in Australia. If I was in the US, I would have done it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Sorry, 1 second.
Yeah, you're good.
These two.
Yeah, no problem.
Both of those two.
Which one?
This one.
Which one? This one? Oh, this one. Come say hi on the camera for a sec.
Yeah.
Just a little. Just do a little wave. No, gotta come a little bit closer this way.
Yeah.
I can't see you.
Oh, come closer.
You can't hear. So.
Okay.
Hi.
Yeah, here you go, man.
Yeah.
Love you.
Love you too.
That's great.
No.
That's what it's all about right there, man.
It is. That's what's important. Nothing
Absolutely.
else.
Absolutely.
Nothing comes close. So 24/7. So I think the concept's great, and it's really funny. People have asked me to help them build it here, and I'm like, look, I'm not getting involved in retail again, but it's just if I was in America, if I was in Dallas in 2016 opening, I would have probably 200 of them now.
Yeah, I mean there's instruction places now that are similar.
Yeah.
Right?
They're becoming, and what I used to do is I used to rent out space to instructors to teach, because driving range would charge them, I think, 30% of their lesson. I said, just pay me a fixed fee, like $200 a week, do as many lessons as you want, and it was great for everyone. Yeah. So it's just you're solving a problem. I was just solving it in the wrong place. So
got it.
Another good lesson.
So you want to talk about your golf game? You want to share a little bit about? Because I'm curious. I'm curious from your side, like looking outside, looking into our industry, is like, what's your experience been taking lessons, your progression, just anything that you could share from a golfer standpoint. Like how can we do better?
So look, I'm not an athlete, right? So although I'm a mental athlete. So another little story that I didn't mention earlier is when I was 9 years old, I was the chess champion of Moldova back in the Soviet Union.
So
mini, much worse version. So I have the competitiveness, that I have, but I wasn't physically an athlete. But I have the ambition, aggression, and that competitiveness, right? Yeah. So that's I want to play from scratch.
And you're like, tell the listeners you're a 6 now, you said, or 5?
Just under 5, about 4.5 to 4.8.
So you're playing.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
And you started 14 years ago.
I started 14 years ago. Yeah, I was like 32. Yeah. 32 handicap. I was for a long time. I plateaued. I had these plateau moments. So the last time I plateaued was around 16 handicap, 14, 16. Back about 4 years ago, 4.5. It's hard to know now because during COVID, Melbourne, where I was the most locked down city in the world, 286 days of lockdown. Golf was banned, fishing was banned. It wasn't safe for the fish.
Oh wow.
The fish had to wear masks. let's just not go there. It's too politically incorrect now. But so it's hard for me to tell how many years ago I was at the handicap, but I was there. And I had a golf coach who used to work for me in my warehouse in sales support, great guy, Jason Louis. He worked for Cobra Puma for a long time, and he actually fitted Bryson a couple of times. And he said, look, you're trying to get into positions that your body cannot. So he kind of worked with me to rebuild my swing, and I went to, and actually I had my customer, Gary Edwin over in Queensland. He's one of the most famous coaches in Australia.
I've heard
He
of
has this
yep.
thing, you've heard, right? So
Yes.
he bought a couple of simulators off me, and he taught Jason when Jason was a pro. And so I worked with both of them on this thing called right-sided swing. And so I went, I'm going to forget everything I know, and I'm just going to do what you tell me. And so I rebuilt my whole swing from scratch. And then he also said, because he worked with Bryson and Cobra, he's like, I think you should switch to one length. And I'm like, let's do it. And so for the first 3 months, it was a disaster.
How tall are you?
I'm 5'9".
Okay. Yeah. So
all mine are 7-9 lengths from my basically 58 degree to 4 iron, same length.
Interesting.
And I've thought about going back to normal, but what I love about the one length, and some of your listeners may relate to this, right? Not the golf pros, but like hacks like me, right? That have like day jobs and stuff. I can go to the driving range with one club, and I've worked on every iron in my bag. Same position, same swing, same everything.
Except for the loft.
Except for the loft.
Yeah.
And ball placement, everything the same. And so
Did you play a 4-iron in the middle of your stance?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
And so my consistency improved like out of this world. So I went from 16, 15 handicap to like 8, 9, right? Wow. And but it was a combination of with the one length, and then I still had a few issues off the from the tee box. And then I've been working on some things, and I got down to obviously 5, and I like 4 to 5, and I've just plateaued. So one of my good friends, Gareth, who worked for USGA, he was actually instrumental in building the Gin app that you are familiar with.
Yep.
And he's now actually working with me on some stuff at the Golf Trak. He said he introduced me to Mike Bender and Cheryl Anderson. So I went over there and did some work, and it was funny because so much of golf instruction is so technical, right? My wife is, by the way, getting some lessons at Golf Trak, obviously.
And you're in Dallas, is that correct?
I'm in Dallas. Yeah. I'm in Dallas.
Yeah.
It's she gets a lot of data, and she's not a data person. She's a very field person. I'm the data person. And so, but I'm like, it's interesting. We have these different experiences now.
Not going to be good for her.
Yeah, it's not. It wasn't. Yeah, she's not enjoying it as much as I do. But she's working on it, and that's the main thing. But what Cheryl, she said, well, she like took me to a wall, right? And she's like, just imagine, you got to, with your back pocket, you got to do this line right on the wall as you do your takeaway. And like did that 5 times, hit a shot, and like my world changed.
Yeah.
And it was just this.
You're a visual learner, bro. You're visual / feel kinesthetic guy.
I'm a very kinesthetic guy. I'm very kinesthetic.
Out in 5 minutes.
There you go. and yeah, and
look
so
at your shirt.
Yeah. This is not even my loudest shirt. This is like medium.
Okay.
So I'm now working on this new swing, and I'm hitting it. I've picked up a lot of distance,
nice.
And then they have this person. I forgot his name, which I feel bad because I really want to do a shout out to him. But he's a former drummer, and he, if I find it on my phone, I may have an app.
Former drummer, like in a band.
He's like a former drummer in a band.
Okay.
So he does this rhythm work with you for like an hour and a half.
Oh, wow. Works for Bender.
And yes, for Mike Bender. That's right. Okay. And maybe later we can put in the description or something. But this guy was, and so he got me into this beat, and he said there's different beats, and we experimented with a few different beats, and I landed on T27, which is the same beat as Rory, which is quite quick transition, right? And
sure.
Now, and so he records this music rhythm for you. And he plays it on the speaker, or you can put it in AirPods. and then it's like there's like a pre-shot routine part of it, and then you take away and then hit, and then when you hit, there's like this big drum bang, so that that's when you're supposed to hit. And I kid you not, 15 minutes like working on that rhythm, I gained 10% club head speed.
Wow.
And not only that, like I was striping them, and it was all on video. Like
This
just
is driver swings.
No, this is
Just
I had a
just
7-9
irons?
at the time. 7-9,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Okay.
I went from 157, 160 yards to 185 to 190 carry with a 7-9.
Okay.
Just striping it. And little baby draws, I'm like, how did, like, what, how is this happening? Right. And, but,
not John Novosel, is it? He's the
listen,
Tour Tempo guy. I don't think he works for Bender, but
no, he doesn't work there. He just comes in, does
this might have
to
been
tempo. That's
3
hold on,
to
let
1
me-
ratio guy. Yeah, he wrote a book called Tour Tempo.
It's something the word tempo.
It's probably him. It's probably John Novosel. Yeah, there's
Okay.
something to it.
It was amazing. It was truly really amazing. I'm gonna have to find this
No,
this
you
thing
can text me later.
it's
We'll put
yeah.
it in there.
But it was just it was really amazing. And so I'm working on basically the tempo thing, just very consistent. I also work with another customer of mine in Australia on the mental game, which I think is really important. I think most golfers that I speak to have very little idea about the mental part of the game. They
100%,
focus so
yeah.
much on their swing, on mechanics, and they just like it's all here.
Yeah.
If you've hit, my view is like if you've hit one perfect shot ever in your life, your body knows how to do it. You're the one who ruins it.
No doubt.
You got to get out of your own way.
There's a lot of ways to do that. Yeah. That's so
So
cool.
I and the other thing is like this swing. I worked for years to try to increase my angle of attack with my driver. Right. Back 5 years ago, I was minus 7 degrees.
Oof.
I know.
Not good.
Talk about not good. I got up to plus 6 degrees, which I thought was
I don't hit
physically
down on my
impossible.
wedge that much.
Yeah. So I got up to 6 degrees up with this new swing mechanic. So I'm pretty excited by that.
Yeah.
So just always grinding out, but when I grind again, I want same as business. You got to do the little steps. You got to work on it. You got to grind at it. It's not just going to happen overnight. It's not going to be from watching. It's like I know so many people who watch YouTube videos. Swing tips. I'm like, it's like watching some guy who's going to tell you you're going to get rich by watching a 6-minute video on cryptocurrency trading, and tomorrow you're going to be a millionaire. It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, why would you do
it? Yeah, that's a whole other podcast. Yeah, where do you play in Dallas? Do you play at a club?
So I live at a place called the Castle Hills, the lakes at Castle Hills.
Okay.
So I live on the course, play here, member here, love it. They used to have Q School here. Great track. I love traveling around the world, playing different golf courses. If you're ever in Melbourne, let me know. I live 10 minutes from Royal Melbourne. Alistair, who runs my Australian business, he's a member there.
Okay.
And
I would love to travel to Australia.
Melbourne has the most insane golf. Like it's all like in one space. Like it's some of the best golf in the world.
I got a couple of members that I teach that their daughter live out there, and they travel out there, and they've played all the courses, and it's amazing. Really, that's amazing great country. Very cool.
Yeah. So this is. So did you think we covered kind of the business to golf and golf to business kind of bridge?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's that. I'm just curious, man. I just want to know what makes you tick. I think you did a good job. It's hard to know. Yeah, it's hard to know like what direction that you want to. What do you want to share? Right? It's like that's the thing when you're a guest on, and you're on the other side, which I've been a guest on a lot of podcasts. Like you forget stuff. You're like, oh yeah, that was the, I remember that story, right, growing up, but you've been through a lot, and that's like, it's just such a interesting story, and I think it's going to help a lot of people.
Well, I think that the future is even interesting. I think golf is going through a really interesting
Yeah, what's your
technology
perspective on
evolution.
that? Yeah, I think the industry itself is our side of it's going through a lot just because there's so much like almost information overload and how we sort of separate ourselves and help our players. But like from the tech standpoint, where do you see the future?
Well, I think golf simulation, launch monitors, all of that, I think is kind of a must now. Like I think this is
Hundred
what I want to
percent.
do with Golf Track, but I think everyone should have.
Mm-hmm.
In the same way, like I think everyone should use the Golf GPS. Like why wouldn't you in this day and age? Know your distances, see where the trouble is. Really work the course. Unless you're just there hitting balls and having not a care in the world. Um, I think there's so much technology. I think where we're going to see a lot of. I mean, even in the last year, I've seen probably 4 or 5 new apps to do with your body tracking.
Yeah,
Like Sportsbox AI. I know Ji
sure.
has done an amazing job. I met her a couple of
Yeah,
weeks ago in Frisco. But again, I think
motion to
there's
coach is doing a lot of stuff. I don't know if you've dealt with them. I'm
I've,
dealing. I
I've
got a good
seen
friend that works for them. It's
right,
unbelievable.
and there's Uplift AI. There's Vuex from Idea Lab. There's Mustard Golf. There's all these new ones, right? There's Sparrow Golf. Um, But I think where the differentiation is going to be, and this is kind of where someone asked me the other week, I think in another podcast, they said,
Mhm.
like, how do you see yourself different from all these other apps that have started to spring up in the golf, like as a launch monitor? And I said, look, there's some really good ones out there, but being a good app in terms of like tracking the ball is not enough. That's your ticket to play. Um, I think the what I'm trying to achieve is make it fun and accessible and enjoyable, improve through the joy of just using it, playing golf, hitting golf balls. Um, and the improvement will come naturally as you just, you practice the movements and all of that. I think with like instruction, I think where AI is going to come in is really, it's going to almost take away I think the first place is going to be diagnosis. So, like you go do a swing evaluation or whatever, Golf Tech, for example,
Yeah,
right? So I think that whole diagnosis is going to go very much into AI. And from there, it will be, I think the next thing will be supervised practice, which is, have you seen that thing that like shocks you? Goes on your wrist. It's like a watch. It's from
shocks you.
Sweden.
Okay,
Yeah, it
no.
does like electric shock. It's
Uh-uh.
like Pavlov's dog.
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
Yeah, I met the guys at the PGA show last year, and I met them again this year, and they've grown
Uh-huh.
tremendously. I can't remember the name of it, but basically it's for chipping, and they're doing it for putting, I think now. But it's as you move, as you get into the wrong position, it shocks you.
Oh
Um,
my gosh. Okay.
yeah, it's pretty
Bound to be
funny actually. The
coming.
first time, yeah.
Yeah.
But the my point is that I think it's going to evolve into supervised practice where you're being guided after every swing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, if you're trying to hit like into out, that wasn't it. That wasn't it. Oh, that was it. How did that feel, right? And try to bed down that. And then eventually, I mean, there's a possibility that golf instruction will start to get replaced with AI as well.
Yeah, I don't think the human element is ever going to be replaced. I mean, we still have to make the decisions on in the personal relationship of being there. I think is the only thing we've got going for us. But you're 100% correct. It's already happening. I mean, TrackMan's got Tracy, right? It's
Yeah,
like it can tell you like, hey, you need to work on your club face, but you need a golf instructor to actually
correct.
help you with that. And like, what direction do you go
And this
to
is like where
improve that element of the game? But it's going to give you some direction, I think, and the goggles I think is going to be the next thing with like putt
yeah,
view is amazing, where you can actually see the breaks and work on your putting and stuff. That's the
I
thing I
agree.
think is going to be really good. And obviously,
I agree, but you with the coach, like what I was saying with my wife, like she wants someone to like take her hands and show her what is
yeah,
supposed to
that's what
feel.
yeah, nobody can replace what I do when I put my
Hmm.
hands on my players. Like I can
That
move them and create a feel and attach that to a picture and to some data that really speeds along the process. So
hmm.
that's what she's probably missing a little bit.
But the one thing I'll also, and I forgot to mention this earlier, is that my the work I've done on my swing indoors, so on a launch monitor into a screen, uh, it's been like experimentation. That creativity you talked about before, right?
Sure.
So like
Yeah.
I know how to move a ball low right to left, high right to left, low left to right, etc. Right? And I do that. I don't do that on the course. I don't even do that on the range. But you put me on a screen, I'm like, I'll go and try all these wacky shots,
Yeah.
and then you realize you can actually execute them. on the real thing. So that's another thing where I see like this simulation, like the Golf Trak would potentially help, and or other launch monitors,
Right.
where the more you use it indoors, the more you can take that skill. You build your toolbox. You can then take it on the course, and you can pull off shots like that crazy low stinger that I did that I didn't even know I could do.
That's awesome.
But you trust your body, right? You go, I
Absolutely.
know, you got to trust that moment. I wasn't thinking I'm going to take it away at 3 degrees and go to 82%. Transfer my weight 40%. Like that's a
Yeah,
good way to.
yeah, you got to have. I mean, you have to have the information, but then ultimately you got to connect that to a swing feel. So I'd basically separate those into swing thoughts versus swing feels.
Yeah.
Swing thoughts you can practice with, and you start making some adjustments, but you ultimately have to play with swing feels, which is totally innate and instinct, like you said, creating pictures and painting the shot, right? It's like there's and self-discovery is a big deal. Like I think you make a good point there is once you get some sort of foundation, then people don't practice enough by doing the crazy stuff. Learn how to hit a big slice, learn how to hit a big hook. What does it feel like? What are you doing? Right. It's like, and then find the middle. Everybody wants to hit it straight. And I'm like, that's not an option. That's not
it's hardest shot in golf.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I'm like, people are like, I just want to hit it straight. I'm like, well, that's not an option. You're in the wrong place. We got to pick a side. It's about repeatable ball flight you can basically rely on that, it's coming. That's it. Doesn't matter what it is, So yeah, that's cool. Well, good luck with your journey there, man. That's
Thank you.
It's exciting.
Appreciate the time. It's been it's flown by so quickly.
I know.
It's fun chatting. I don't know many other topics. Maybe we just both so obsessed with golf. We can make it, this time go past feel like a couple of minutes.
Absolutely. Well, maybe we'll have a part 2 in the future here if we
would love to
continue to build this relationship. But I appreciate your time and you coming on, and I really admire you as a person and your journey, because I think it's inspiring, and my money's on you, dude. I'm not going to bet against you at all.
Thank you.
Yeah. So tell the listeners how they can follow you on socials, how they can get a hold of your product, and if you got any programs that
absolutely.
Out there.
Look, I'll share a program with your listeners. I'll put give you a link and a code that you guys can download and get a bit extra trial period. But the website is obviously www.golftrak trak.app app. Okay. I'm on LinkedIn. Still working on my other socials. You won't find me on TikTok though. I can tell you that now. And
gotta get there, man.
I don't know.
It might be going away.
Yeah, exactly. Might be banned in a month. It's fine.
Yeah.
But no, just on just normal, socials. LinkedIn is probably the best social to connect with. I spend a lot of time on there. Okay. But yeah, would love feedback. And if you have an iPhone, do you have an iPhone?
I do.
Excellent. Well, please, I'll send you some codes. Please download it. Would love your thoughts, your feedback. With students and stuff. I had another coach over in Columbus, in Ohio. Use it with some students. And it's been great because again, students that don't want to go and spend, $3,000-$4,000. So it's a great way.
Yeah, I'm always getting that question. My students like, what should I get? And if I believe in something, I'm gonna push it and promote it. So
awesome. Well, I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for your time, man. Best of luck to you and your companies and your kids and everything else that you're doing. So
thank you.
Stuff.
Look forward to the next one.